I I'm talking about I'm going to talk about companion planning tonight. I love companion planning for many reasons. Number one, it works, but mostly I probably love it a lot because our grandmothers and their grandmothers, and perhaps even further back in the generations, practiced companion planning before they even knew to call it that. They knew that you planted marigolds with certain plants. They knew that you put basil with certain plants and onions, et cetera, et cetera. And the lovely thing now is that scientists have actually created a lot of research that we can reference. So it has a scientific background now, which is great. And this particular photo is one of the wild companion planted beds that I've grown in my backyard with everything from Swiss chard, okra, herbs, cosmos, zinnias, marigolds, you name it, gladiolas. It's a wild bed, but it was happy. So we'll talk a little bit about Tarrant Regional Water District. They partner with us, and Tarrant Regional Water District manages 4 area lakes that supply water to the cities in Tarrant County, including Fort Worth. Their mission includes water supply, flood control, and recreation. And conservation is an important water supply strategy. And for all of us, we are growing. I read the other day that it was talking about land being used up. 50 acres of land in Tarrant County are being consumed for development every day, which I can't fathom that. But knowing that it's for development, you know the water needs are going to go up. So at SaveTarrantWater.com, there are a lot of resources. You can sign up for a free sprinkler check. If you're a Tarrant County resident, a professional licensed irrigation specialist will come to your home, evaluate your sprinkler system, and give you recommendations. There is no cost and no hard pressure sales. You can sign up for free weekly watering advice. This week, for my zip code, the recommendation was to put half an inch of water on my lawn. There's a calendar of events and classes at SaveTarrantWater.com and water saving tips and videos. It's a good site. So companion planning. What is a companion? Well, the word companion originated in Latin, and it means, someone who eats bread with someone else. And while it does have a lot of meanings, tonight we're going to focus on the definition of a pair of things that go together, that complement each other. And this is a picture of my granddaughter a couple of years ago with oak leaf hydrangeas, which she just loves. But she's a garden companion for me because if I say, Jolie, you want to go plant something? Yeah, she's ready. And so we complement each other that way. So why do people need companions? Well, we need companions because we benefit from supportive, encouraging, and people, and so do plants. They benefit from plants that sort of support and encourage them. And following is a list of the many ways that companion planting can improve your garden. And these aren't all the benefits, but these are some of the big ones. Some plants will provide nutrients for another plant. Some plants are natural pesticide plants. And some plants are often used for buffer zones. And that was one of the things that some of our ancestors did. They knew that if you planted, let's say, a buffer zone of marigolds and chives around tomato bed, you might cut down on the number of pests that would get into the tomatoes. Companion plants are often pollinator attractors. So some of the plants are luring in the pollinators that will then go on and pollinate your cucumbers and squash and all the different plants. Some plants help with the biological control of pests, such as the tomato hornworm, because they pull in the parasitoid wasp that we want. And we'll talk about that later. Some plants are maskers, again, scent camouflaging. Their pungent scents may mask the scent of a delicious tomato to a pest. Some companion plants can also be trappers, and some improve soil structure. Some companion plants are weed reducers through a process called allelopathy, and I'll define that later. And then some plants are just great generalists. They're like the best neighbors you've ever had, and you always want them around you. And so do plants. There's some plants that will just be welcome next to any plant in the garden. And I reference a lot Companion Planning, a gardening guide for beginners, and also the book Plant Partners, and they'll be listed in the resource guide too, but they contain a lot of information. So this, I have two lists in this presentation, but this is my first list of must plant companions, and I'll let you read it. I would say this to you right now, and it is the honest truth, all of everything on this list. The only thing not currently growing in my garden are nasturtiums because their time has, they were gone by June. Mustard, I went ahead and pulled out because of all the flea beetle damage. I've got one pitiful dill plant left and a couple of borage plants left that are looking pretty raggedy, but all the others are still going strong and taking care of each other and or trapping pests. So we'll go through them. Basil repels a lot of insects from asparagus beetles, spider mites, carrot flies, thrips. It can deter cabbage loopers and cabbage worms. It benefits if it's grown with other herbs, which I've listed. And as you know, it grows very well with tomatoes. I find it interesting. I think of basil as such a nice little plant. And until I started researching, didn't know that it would repel so many obnoxious pests. This picture is just here so that you see cinnamon basil is a beautiful basil. I'm not crazy about the taste of it, but I grow it because it has this lovely top composition of beautiful leaves towards the end of its life. And then we'll put up little purple flowers. It has a good smell. Borage is one of my favorite plants for several reasons. It has these lovely purple flowers, purple blue flowers. They're small. They're probably about the size of your thumbnail. Scientists have counted and they tell us that one borage plant can have 999 of these flowers on every single plant. And the way it grows in a rosette pattern. So you get the center leaves and you'll see the little bud cluster on the plant in the lower picture. And it will do all of its blooming. And then suddenly you'll get side shoots of blooms. And borage is a plant that is said to make your tomatoes taste better if you grow it with them. But look at what it repels. It helps repel worms. It attracts bees. It attracts tiny wasps. Bees love these flowers because my borage always blooms fairly early in spring. And the honeybees are really happy when the flowers open. And it grows well with quite a few plants. What you do need to know, it's a very large plant. It can uh, have a diameter of 2.5, almost 3 feet. So I grow it under my tomatoes, and I have not planted it by seed in 3 years because it self-seeds. I'll have it come up all over the garden, and I just move the plants as they come up over to my tomato and pepper beds. Alliums are one of my favorite companion plants. And alliums include, as you see, onions, garlic, leeks, scallions, chives, shallots. And while onions, true big bulbing onions, you're going to plant them in January and let them grow till June. You can plant smaller onions throughout the year in various beds. You can plant Welsh onions or Egyptian walking onions, scallions, garlic chives, onion chives. Shallots I plant also at the same time in January that I plant my onions. I plant garlic in October, but you can, and don't harvest it till June of the following year, but you can plant garlic cloves throughout the year and harvest it as green garlic. But again, you can plant it around plants that are precious to you. And they say that roses love garlic. There's actually a title of a book. That's the title of a book, but many people will plant green garlic around their rose bushes because the garlic repels Japanese beetles. Notice in yellow, I said, do not plant with beans or asparagus. They do not play well together. So alliums do not make good neighbors for beans or asparagus. Dill, most people that I know love pickles. So it's always worthwhile to grow dill. It's great in a salad. but it does a lot of other good things in the garden. It repels asparagus beetles, so you could plant this as a buffer zone around your asparagus bed. But look what it attracts: the lacewing, the ladybugs, the hoverflies, predatory wasps. It attracts butterflies. You see what it grows well with. However, don't plant it with carrots. They're in the same family, and somehow they inhibit the growth of each other. And don't plant it with tomatoes because it attracts tomato hornworms. And of course, you should plant some for you and some for the pollinators, because eventually you'll get swallowtail caterpillars. I mentioned marigolds at the beginning because that's what my grandmother always told me to plant with my tomatoes, and she was right. I don't believe she knew that French marigolds have a toxin in their roots that will actually kill root knot nematodes. And now when I plant tomatoes, I plant a French marigold plant right next to each tomato plant, for that very reason. If your tomato plant roots are infiltrated by root knot nematodes, it's kind of like having a blockage in an artery. The flow of nutrients is slowed down, and so that's not what you want for your tomatoes, your peppers. Okra can also get root knot nematodes. So um, French marigolds are just a great hardy little plant. You know, they're easy to save seed from, and you can still plant them now. I just planted some with students at the library in Azle. I was giving them marigold seeds on Saturday, and so they will bloom until the first frost, and they grow well, like I said, with a lot of other plants. My absolute favorite marigold to grow is called Orange Flame, and it's from Baker Creek. And I have a list at the end of my seed sources. I just happen to like this one because of its unique coloring. Millet. So when you say millet, people think birdseed, organic cereals. This is ornamental millet growing in this bed. And I bought seed in 2019 and planted it for the first time in 2020. I wanted to grow it simply because I wanted the flower stalks to dry and put in flower arrangements. I just thought they were striking. And you can see that it grows pretty tall. This is actually a 32-foot high bed. And by the time this millet was finished growing, it was almost up to 8 feet. So this variety got really tall. Because you're saving seed from it, you'll never need to buy seed again. So that's the great thing. However, I learned the first year I planted it that it was attracting stink bugs and Florida leaf-footed bugs. And then I researched and found, oh my gosh, it's a trap crop for those bugs. So I grow it in the garden every year now in different places. I try to plant it far away from tomatoes because at this time of year, if my tomatoes are still going, the leaf-footed bugs are starting to attack. And I've got a picture to show you. So this is millet in action. The picture on the left was taken yesterday, and those are Florida leaf-footed bug nymphs, the little orange guys on the millet itself. And there's also some spider mite action going on this one, but that was fine. So it was doing double duty. And you're just seeing the pollen grains. That's what a little rice-like uh, growth is. But if you look to the right, you can see mature Florida leaf-footed bugs. This was a picture from last year. And apologies, but you can tell they're mating. So not only is millet good to feed the nymphs and draw them away from your plants, it also keeps the adult nymphs, adult leaf-footed bugs busy too, and keeps them off of your plants. And these are bugs that are piercing bugs. So they're the ones like stink bugs that are going to pierce your tomatoes, pierce your peppers, and eventually cause them to rot. And you don't want them. You'd rather have them on something like this. So that's a different form of companion planting, but it's I think a very, very beneficial one. I actually enjoy eating mustard, but I plant it for two reasons. When it's small, we have it in salads all the time. But as it grows and starts to bolt, it becomes an attractant for flea beetles. And flea beetles are tiny, tiny insects that cause all the little holes in plants. Flea beetles are really notorious for attacking sweet potato leaf leaves and other plants. And so I like to grow mustard in pots or grow bags that I can move around the garden and pull the flea beetles away from, again, my treasured crops. And I think it's interesting, ruby streaks, which is a really tasty one, and Chinese mustard can actually pull heavy metals out of the soil in a process called phytoremediation. And on a big farming level, they are doing this in some places, I guess in the whole remediation world. And to me, of course, I wouldn't want to eat the plants that have been used for that purpose, but it's interesting to note that we can eat something. It can pull insects away from other plants, and it can also help to improve our soil. That's pretty neat. Alyssum, sweet alyssum, wonderful smelling plant. You know, it has tiny flowers. These are plants I grew from seed a couple of years ago. I've discovered lately that it's easier to go ahead and buy plugs just because I can get them in the ground sooner and they're bigger, but they create a habitat for beneficials. The tiny insects that are called parasitoid wasps are the ones that they're drawn to the pollen in the neck. They come to the plants for food, and then they look around for tomato hornworms, these little parasitoid wasps, and they're the ones that lay their eggs on the back of a tomato hornworm. And when the larva hatches, they infiltrate the tomato hornworm and devour it from the inside out. So these beautiful little flowers eventually help control the hornworms in your garden. Hoverflies love them too. Nasturtiums are a fun plant. You know, they're tasty, the leaves, the flowers, and great in salads, but they also repel different insects, cucumber beetles, woolly aphids, whiteflies, squash bugs, and they grow well with quite a few plants. In this particular picture, I have nasturtiums growing in a vertical planter called a green stalk. Sunflowers. Sunflowers are great for pollinators, but they also are great as a trap crop. They attract aphids. They attract other insect pests. I've seen, let's see, whiteflies on them. And my enemy, the stink bug and leaf-footed bugs, love them too. They can provide shade for some plants growing beneath them, so that's another companion benefit. One thing that I tell people, and you can look it up, I promise I don't make these things up. Sunflowers are allelopathic. So if you plant them in a row or a bed or a container with other plants, there's a possibility that the roots of the sunflower will put out a mild toxin that will inhibit the growth of everything around it, because that's just what they do. Kind of think like an oak tree or a walnut tree, and that you often don't see anything growing under. They have a little more toxin. They're allelopathic also. So I plant sunflower. Well, I don't plant them anymore. They come up all over. But when I plant them or planted them, I would put them outside of a bed near something that I wanted to pull pests away from. It's a picture of a teddy bear sunflower on the left, and that's a short sunflower, 2.5 to 3 feet tall at most, and they're real attractive. If you want to grow sunflowers and have the benefits, but not have them 10, the ones that are 8 to 10 feet tall, teddy bear is a great one to grow. On the right, you see all the ants on the leaf of this sunflower. That's the front. What you don't see on the back, it was covered in aphids, and the ants were going from the back to the front. I jostled the leaf, but they had been on the back milking the aphids, and that's okay. Zinnias, as you know, attract pollinators. Zinnias are one of the companion plants that we call a generalist. They are the great neighbors. They get along with anything you can name. I've never come across anything that said, do not grow zinnias with this plant. It's that good. Bringing in the pollinators alone is wonderful. And these are just a couple of my favorites. And I'm going to go blank on you on the first one. I know it came from Botanic Garden. The one in the middle is a queen lime. There's queen peach. There's several of the queens, and this is just how it looks when it's opening up. And then these are on the right. They are the common giant zinnias, the ones that grow between 4 to 6 feet tall. And the cut and come again is another name for them. And then remember, I said I had a second list. Here it is: calendula, carrots, chamomile, excuse me, chamomile. Yep, comfrey, cosmos, peas, radishes, and sage. Carrots are great just because they're carrots, but they also can be used as a trap crop to attract aphids and cabbage worms and Colorado potato beetles. When I don't grow potatoes every year, Irish potatoes, but when I do, I'll grow them in giant, really tall grow bags. I might grow a grow bag of carrots fairly close to them to pull potato beetles away. And the potato beetles tend to eat, from at least in my experience, the greens. So that does make the carrots more stunted because they're not getting as much, they're not getting the benefits of the photosynthesis and all. But that's all right. Calendula, this is another one that is a generalist. It's just everybody's friend in the garden, and there are so many colors and varieties. There's a pink one, there's striped ones, there are yellow, gold, orange, you name it. It's just a really happy flower, and it too will self-seed if it's in good growing conditions. It grows really well with the black brassicas, and it deters aphids. Cosmos. I promise my dog is not pink, but I noticed when I added the picture that he looks pink standing behind the cosmos. Cosmos is another generalist that gets along with all plants. It's pretty. It brings in the pollinators, of course. It can attract aphids, so you want to keep that in mind if you're putting it with your with any of your leafy greens, kale, collards. I wouldn't put them together. Plant it with your brassicas, though it says, but I don't. That's one thing I would say. Anything that's going to attract aphids, I wouldn't plant it with them. Comfrey is an herb. It has lots of history as a medicinal herb, but as a companion plant, it has a deep, deep taproot, and it is said to be 3 feet long or longer if it's in a stand that's been growing a long time. So it's going to improve your soil structure over time. What I like about it, it makes a great compost tea with the leaves, not the flowers. As the leaves, as you get an abundance of leaves, you can pull them off and put them in a 5-gallon bucket with some water and put the top on it and let it sit for a month. And when you take the top off, be prepared to have your nose wrinkle because it doesn't smell good, but it makes a very, very rich, thick, almost syrupy compost tea. And you strain out the leaves, and then you're going to mix a very small amount per gallon of water, and you can find um, ratios online, but I know that I use it as a foliar tea. I'll put it in a gallon bucket and just pour it over the plants, and it does a really nice job. I will say this, it also attracts pollinators. Again, it blooms early in the season, and the honeybees, though, are when they first come out, if the flowers are blooming, they're adorable because they crawl up in it, and all you see are their little rear ends wiggling as if they're happy. Chamomile, it has antifungal properties. It can be made into a liquid plant food that you could spray on plants with fungal issues. Right now, I know that some of my zinnias are starting to get powdery mildew, and if I were growing chamomile, I could make a fungal tea for them. I have found, though, that by this time in summer, it's not growing for me. So, but it also is very, very popular with ladybugs and wasps and small insects early in the year. Peas. Peas are a wonderful companion plant for whatever grows in the garden after they have been there. So if you can imagine a pea. These are the beautiful pea shoots, the pea blossoms. If you can imagine, as those little shoots at the top come out, if they were little hands reaching up into the air, grabbing nitrogen, and then kind of sending it tunneling down the stem of the plant into the roots, that nitrogen is going to be stored in the soil all around those roots, and it's going to be there for the next generation of plants. I often will plant sugar snap peas in particular beds, and in the fall, and once they're through, I never pull the roots out. I'll flush cut them because I want that nitrogen to stay in the soil with those roots that can just decompose very happily. So I flush cut them to the soil level, and then I'll plant cucumbers or tomatoes or okra, something there that will be happy with all that extra nitrogen, and I've had great success with it. And so peas, anything in the legume family, think peas, beans, black-eyed peas, cowpeas, crowder peas, field peas, Chinese long beans. They're all going to benefit your soil. So will red clover, which is another plant in the legume family. And radishes. These are French breakfast radishes. They're tasty. They are ready to be harvested in no less than 5 weeks. I believe I let these go 6 or 7 weeks so that you get some interesting shapes, but delicious. But their leaves, as the season goes on, their leaves will start to attract flea beetles. Again, pulling those flea beetles away from something else. If you want to grow daikon radishes, they're the large ones. Or there's a rat tail radish. It's a dark kind of purpley black looking one. Because they're much larger, they will loosen the soil if you've got compacted soil and you want to plant them there. Sage. This is a variegated sage and a golden sage. I believe I put them together. But common sage is great too. We love it. I always think of Thanksgiving when I think of sage, but it grows really well with brassicas and strawberries, but it repels quite a few bad guys, cabbage moths, loopers, black fly beetles, carrot rust flies. So I actually grow it all over the garden, and I grow it in pots again that I can move around. So what does companion planting look like? It's not monoculture. You're not going to see a field of corn and nothing else, or a field of you name it. You're going to see this interplay, intermixture of everything. And this is another one of those mixtures of vegetables. There's Swiss chard again, there's okra, there are some chives in here. I know you can't find them. There's zinnias, marigolds, cosmos, etc. Just a very happy interplay of plants, and it's just kind of glorious for me. I hope for you too. So here's an example in real life. So this was my cucumber tunnel in 2023. I had grown sugar snap peas. I planted them in February of that year, and then the cucumbers were planted in April after the sweet peas were cut down. You'll notice there's some sunflowers way at the end, but they're not in that bed. They're in a bed next to these beds. These are interplanted with blue spice basil, which is an ornamental basil. It draws in pollinators, and stink bugs like it. So they would burrow into the blue spice basil instead of attacking my cucumbers. And there's also some okra in here, marigolds, and there's artichokes down on the bottom right. So just a mixture of many different things. And this is the opposite end, just so you can see the sunflowers are planted. They're not even in the bed. They're adjacent to that's a structure called a solar digester there. And so happy sunflowers pulling in the bad guys, pulling them away from my cucumbers. Win-win. This is a bed that is companion planted. It's colored bell peppers. There's 6 of those. There's 2 kinds of basil in there. There's onion chives, marigolds, sweet alyssum. And by the end of the season, it was just overgrown. And in back, you'll see in the grow bags, artichokes, Shasta daisies, alyssum, nasturtiums, and more bell peppers. It's a green stalk planter that was interplanted with, again, nasturtiums, lettuces, Swiss chard, marigolds, carrots at the top. And I had an extra potato plant that year, so I just stuck it in there. And I actually got 3 potatoes out of there. So not the best place to plant potatoes, but I have a hard time tossing um, a good plant. Another look at the garden. This was late 2022, early 2023. And again, I want to say, nope, that's not true. I apologize. It was March of 2023. And it's the same bed that I showed a few up here in the foreground. It's the same bed I showed a few slides back that was that interplay of all the different plants. But you can see at this point in time, there was the chard that was there, but it was all planted with kale. And as soon as the kale was becoming attacked by the aphids, everything, kale came out, and all those flowers, the okra eventually was planted in there. And so it just keeps evolving. Here's a small bed with Mexico midget tomatoes planted in it. They're a great little cherry tomato, sweet basil, cardinal basil, chives, marigolds, straw flowers. Oops. Sorry. This is the start of a companion planted bed. So I brought out the tomatoes that I'd been growing in the house. I started them from seed. I started putting in some herbs. There's basil and onion chives. And eventually this had zinnias, cosmos, some scallions in it. Every square in the watering grid was filled in, and it mimics foursquare gardening, but it was full, and it was a great tomato bed. You can companion plant in a container. This shows you, this is a micro tom tomato. There are a lot of dwarf tomatoes that have been bred in the last several years, so this is a hybrid, and they'll put on all their growth. All the tomatoes will come out pretty much within a couple of weeks of one another. So you're going to get a harvest, and then you can remove the tomato plant, but there's chives. There was an African marigold in there in time. And they were good little tomatoes. And back in 2022, where I had cucumbers in 2023, I was growing in 2022 black-eyed peas, okra, blue spice basil, zinnias, sunflowers, but not in the bed. They're in the walkway because they came up everywhere. Cosmos, you name it. But again, they all seem to be happy because they're benefiting each other. 2024, we were still having frost at night. There's frost cloth down at the bottom of the green stalks, and they're just barely planted, but you'll notice they were interplanted. There's sage from a couple of years before. I've got my pansies still going in there, and Swiss chard and herbs. And the bed in front is interplanted with rosemary, thyme, you name it, and kale down here, more chard, marigolds. I can't help myself sometimes. I just keep experimenting and researching what will work well together. And that leads right into this slide. So research compatibility, because not all plants make good companions. Remember I said, do not plant anything in the allium family with your asparagus or your beans, because they just won't be happy. So plan out your garden, plant early indoors ideally, because you'd like your companions to be ready at the same time, and keep records and just celebrate your successes. And this has yarrow. Yarrow is a great companion plant that I didn't list. It just it's a medicinal herb. You can make a tea from it. It grows well with lots of other plants. The little bitty flowers are attractive to many pollinators, the small pollinators. And if you grow it around your compost bin, as the leaves die and you throw the leaves into your compost, yarrow leaves and comfrey leaves will speed up decomposition. So they're not only benefiting your plants, they benefit your compost. Again, another nice benefit. So I'll leave this up for a minute. These are my some of my sources. I mentioned Plant Partners by Jessica Walliser and Companion Planning by Nina McKeon. And then Jessica also has written a good book about attracting beneficial bugs to your garden, which also has a companion planning kind of bent to it. And the last two books, Carrots Love Tomatoes and Roses Love Garlic, were written by a sweet lady named Louise Riote. She was a gardener, I believe in Oklahoma, and she's no longer with us, but her books are filled with great anecdotal um, stories about growing different plants together. There's no scientific research in it, but what she did is now borne out by the research of people like Jessica Walliser. And I think that's delightful. You will be getting a PDF copy of these two handouts. One is from Old World Garden Farms, and it just talks about your vegetables on this side and herbs, and then great companion plants for them and what to avoid planting with them, with the vegetables. And then this is the second page is from a YouTube vlogger named Liz Zorab at By Their Farm. She's in Wales, really knowledgeable, and she talks about plants that do get along together. So, and don't get along. So be looking for those when you get the copies, when you get the evaluation and other things. Here's some of my YouTube channels and resources. As I said, there's Liz Zorab. Hugh Richards is in Wales, really knowledgeable about food forest and permaculture. Jacques in the Garden and Epic Gardening are in San Diego. Growing in the Garden is in Arizona. And so I pull from gardeners all over the world their knowledge. And up here at the top, we've got a stink bug on a zinnia, and you got a wheel bug here, which is a good guy. He will go after the stink bugs. And then these are my seed sources. I order 95% of all my seeds because I research, I know what I want. I know if I can't find it anywhere, I'm going to have to go to a source, and I always start with these guys. And amazingly, I was looking for tree spinach 2 days ago. Tree spinach is a perpetual spinach, and I couldn't find it on these sites, but Walmart had it. So Walmart is sending me tree spinach seed, and it had good ratings. So you never know. So just because I don't have it listed doesn't mean I won't buy from someone else. But these are just really good, solid sources for seeds. And when you get a PDF of the or a link to the video, this will be listed for you too. All right. That's it. And again, I'm sorry about the beginning. I don't know what happened to the internet at my house. It got cranky.
Okay. Yeah. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A right now, Sheryl, for you. And the first one,
Okay.
as
Okay.
as a retired advanced practice nurse, I refrain from answering because I want to hear your answer. But the first one is, can you use chamomile tea flowers from herb stores or tea bags to make an antifungal agent?
Hmm. You can do anything, right?
Mhm.
Would I? Can I answer it that way? Would I? I wouldn't because I don't know how those plants were processed. Does that make sense? And I'll tell you, I have consumed chamomile tea all my life, right? From tea bags that I bought at the store. Discovered last year, though, I started drinking my own chamomile tea. Discovered last year that I'm allergic to it, and I and my eyelids swell shut when I drink chamomile tea from homegrown chamomile. So that made me start wondering what was the difference between what I was actually growing with no, there are no pesticides used in my garden, so it's just growing.
Mhm.
So was what I was drinking not real chamomile? I don't know. I would try to use the real flowers if I could get it. But if
Mhm.
not, you can experiment. I mean, how's that?
Right. And
What
I
would you
think you hit
say?
on the primary one that I went over and I'm used to dealing with the National Institute of Health, NIH. And the biggest thing that they were mentioning is you
Hmm.
have to know your grower. Like you said, if they use
Hmm.
herbicides, pesticides, if they are truly organic, if they're organic certified, you know, that kind of business.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So our second one is Charlotte wants to know, do you use mints? And if so, how do you use them?
I missed out on one word. Do I use,
Mints, M-I-N-T-S.
do I use mints? Yes.
Yes.
I grow, yes, I grow spearmint and peppermint. I don't grow them as companion plants. I grow them to make tea. So I
Mhm.
drink peppermint tea every day because I love it. And it's supposed to help with if I have an upset stomach, it helps with that and things like that. But I grow it in 17-inch tall steel beds. So it doesn't get to grow with anybody else because as you all know, mint will just take over the world. Same with lemon balm. I grow it for the same reason, but to drink, not as a companion plant.
Okay. And Anne wants to know, what is the secret to growing strawberries so they don't rot?
Well, so this year, I only grow strawberries in my green stalks in the vertical planters that I have. And the reason I have good luck with them going that way, the strawberries themselves grow over the outside of the plastic pocket. If you think about it, would be like growing over the outside of the plastic pot. They don't touch soil, the strawberries themselves. And so as they hang over the sides, they're able to ripen. And those vertical planters are on a turntable, so I can rotate them. And this year, instead of growing strawberries in all my different green stalks, I have them there. I have one green stalk totally dedicated to the strawberries, and it's been my best year. So I have runners now coming out, and I'm letting them go down to the pockets below and start rooting. I'll put a rock on the runner, so that it's touching the soil and try to cover it with some soil. And you can pin them down too. But when I grew strawberries in the past in a raised bed, I fought pill bugs. Pill bugs just decimated them. So when I learned you could grow them in vertical planters where the actual fruit wasn't touching soil, that's my secret. I don't know that it's a secret, but it's what's working for me.
Okay. Ready? And Helen would like to know, what companion plant would you plant with a pomegranate tree and a peach tree?
Okay, so this gets into the world of permaculture or food forest. And I don't have a food forest here because our soil's not marvelous for food forest. It can be done, but I would have to amend the soil a lot. But um, many people who grow orchards are now embracing the herb comfrey, Comfrey, as a great plant to grow under their fruit trees. Again, it's going to improve that soil structure with its deep roots. And when the leaves decompose, it adds nutrients to the soil because that's the plant I talked about that you can take the green leaves off and make compost tea with. So if you were to go to any of those websites I mentioned, like Hugh Richards or I'm trying to think of another one. Several of them discuss growing comfrey plants under all of their fruit trees. And I have mine actually growing in our native soil. I grow very little in our native soil here. I grow in so many raised beds. My flower beds are built up, but I'm growing comfrey in our lovely Southwest Fort Worth clay. And it has thrived. I grew it from seed and
Mhm.
it is now going on year 5. So,
Mhm. Sounds good. I'll have to take
and
that
then you
one.
could go ahead and add, yeah, you'll have to add flowers and different things too. I would add, I would throw any pollinator plants. The only caution would be if those plants are established. Just so Teresa, you can speak to this too with our trees background. Try not to disturb the roots of the trees too much. You might need to plant out a little bit from them. Ideally, when a food forest is planted, you plant a tree, your fruit tree, And then you're going to go ahead and plant the herbs around it, and then the other the berry plants and everything you're going to build out, and then that'll be your starting point, and then you come to and you do another tree, more herbs and flowers, and you just keep going till you have a food forest.
Sounds good. Nita wants to know, other than millet, what else attracts leaf-footed stink bugs to tomatoes? These pests are an issue for her.
Yes, sorghum. Don't laugh. So last year I planted sorghum because I read that it too would attract uh, leaf-footed bugs. And guess what? It does. Now, sorghum is interesting to grow. When you think of sorghum, you think of sorghum molasses. There are many different varieties of sorghum. And I just grew it in the back of the garden with some millet next to it. And they both were just covered in leaf-footed bugs. I have a photograph somewhere of my husband and my brother with those salt guns that you can shoot flies with. They were out there just shooting the leaf-footed bugs off the sorghum. So it's another one. And it's just going to be something you would plant a good 10, 15, 20 feet away from your tomatoes. Right now, though, your best bet's going to be spraying the stink bugs off, wearing gloves, grabbing them and dropping them in some soapy water. They're just awful. And they just laugh at us. You try to grab one, I know, and they just quickly scuttle around to the backside of the tomato. But those are two things that I know. You can plant next year sacrificial. Uh, I have a gourd plant at our community garden. It has gourds on it, but I planted it with millet in a trap crop bed, and the gourd plant has thrived. It's a giant bottle gourd or birdhouse gourd, but half the plant has been consumed by bugs, stink bugs, and the other half is just thriving, and the vine's now 25 feet long, so growing up in a tree, and that's where the gourds are.
Okay.
Hope that helps.
Yep. And Dan would like to know, how do you know whether to grow companion plants directly with other plants or in a separate bed? I've seen a bed separated from the plants at the demo garden. Does that have any benefits?
True companion plants for the most part are going to be together. Again, because let's say if you want to bring the pollinators in, you want to bring them as close to your cucumbers as you can get them, or if you want to repel pests other than, you want those alliums all mixed in, marigolds all mixed in. I would say they need to be planted together. That's what my research shows, and I've really read a lot about it. So it's the trap croppers that you want far away,
Right.
because again, you want to draw the pest away.
Okay. Alrighty. And Carol would like to know, what do you use to deter rabbits from eating your plants, especially your zinnias?
Yeah. I don't have a rabbit problem here. Um, we have possums and raccoons, but I have 7 garden cats that take care of anything else. And I've never seen rabbits here. I've seen foxes, but they don't attack my garden. Um, in Arkansas, I did have a rabbit problem. We lived out in the country, on an acre, and rabbits and deer were everywhere. The deer didn't come in the yard because it was fenced, but the rabbits laughed at the fence. I had to put hardware cloth um, fencing around the beds and bury it partially underground. And even then I ended up going back and putting big, like limestone chunks of rock all around, just to make sure that they couldn't dig under the hardware cloth. And honestly, I don't know. I'm sure there are things to plant that rabbits don't like, but because I haven't had an issue with them here, and I wasn't companion planting per se when I was in Arkansas, I don't have background knowledge on that, and I apologize. I need to look that up.
Yeah. I have an 85-pound Catahoula that right now the rabbits barely outrun. So he's my deterrent. Rabbits and squirrels out here in the
Good.
country. Okay. So we'll look for it. Nita wants to know again, is it better to go squash later in the fall? Every time she tries, she can't control all the squash bugs, and she doesn't like to use pesticides except organic. But doesn't organic pesticide also kill bees?
Some of it can, depending upon, I'm
Mhm.
actually Googling what to plant to deter rabbits. Can I go back to that real quick?
Sure.
Or I'll go back to it in a minute. Let me answer her. Um, read me her question again
Okay. Is it better to grow
about.
squash later in the fall?
Mhm.
Every time she tries, can't control the squash bugs, and she doesn't want to use pesticides except organic.
Okay.
And she thinks those
So
kill bees.
the best, yes, the best thing that I have encountered and read, I read that commercial squash growers will plant a buffer zone of blue Hubbard squash, number one. And they plant it at the same time they do their spring squash. And because apparently blue Hubbard squash is the preferred squash for squash bugs. Um, and so you're going to be planting it to sacrifice it. And you just have to pick a spot in your garden where you're going to plant the blue Hubbard squash, and you'll have to order the seeds. They're not something you'll find around here that I know of. Um, and plant it a good distance from the squash you want to eat. A bug vacuum will also be your friend. And don't laugh, but you can buy these little bitty vacuums. They look a lot like little car vacuums. And literally, you can go right up to a plant. And I showed them this in our community garden last year because they were overrun with squash bugs. That's why we planted a trap crop bed this year. But I just went over to I'm trying to think butternut squash that was just covered in squash bugs and just vacuumed all those little critters up. And I took the container off that has a flap on it and shook it off into a jar of soapy water, and they died. So, and it's very satisfying somehow. It's just, and it's cheap on Amazon. So you could look up bug vacuum. That would help too. But other than blue Hubbard squash and vacuuming them up,
Mhm.
they laugh at things like insecticidal soap, which is what I use as a last resort. I'll mix up my own with Dawn soap and water. And you can buy Safer brand, I believe, sells an organic
Mhm.
soap. But again, you don't want to spray it when the bees are out. So you have to spray it early in the morning or late in the evening. And I wouldn't advise in the evening because then you're going to deal with mildew. So early in the morning before the bees are out. And sometimes they're out before I get to the garden. So
Okay. Well, Debbie would
back
like to know. Yeah, go
okay,
ahead.
okay, I was going to go back to the rabbits. Is that okay, real
Okay,
quick?
rabbits.
So
Hmm.
rabbits. So this says effective choices to deter rabbits from your garden are to plant herbs and flowers that have strong scents. Lavender, marigolds, onions, garlic, rosemary, mint, and catnip. So there you go. That would be a good use for mint. Um, and then it goes into great detail about why each one is good. There's even an article called Battling Bunnies in the Garden. So that's definitely something to look up. And there's a rabbit repellent list, plants that rabbits hate online.
Hmm.
So there's information out there. I just haven't used it personally or experienced it.
Hmm. Got it.
So I don't know.
Alrighty. Well, Debbie would like to know, would comfrey also be good for grapes and blackberries?
I don't know why it wouldn't, because I do know that people who plant food forest are growing blackberries and
Hmm.
blueberries and raspberries and everything else like that, gooseberries too, under those trees with the comfrey. So I
Hmm.
don't know why it would hurt the grapes, but I would look it up, honestly. But I know it won't hurt the berries at all.
Okay. Well, I want to insert M.I. Brigger wrote a comment about rabbits. He said, I
Mhm.
guess he places wire baskets over his native plants to protect them from the rabbits. So that's his
Okay.
contribution, their comment. Okay. So our
Okay,
last
good.
question right now is from Margaret, and then
Hmm.
we'll get to the raised hands. Margaret says, are there any plants that will keep squirrels away from her figs?
Mm, not that I know of. And this year I had a bumper crop of figs, and the grasshoppers were my enemy. And so I didn't want to spray the fig tree with insecticidal soap because I didn't, because figs are open plants. And so I don't know of anything. And the squirrels also were in my fig tree too.
Okay. All
Sorry.
right. All right. Yep. And I apologize. I can't tell the two people that raised their hands. I just saw the notice that we had two people that raised their hands wanted to ask a question. Maybe they can put it in the Q&A. Mhm. Okay. All right. In our chat box, I don't see any questions over there, but there is a link to the evaluation. And there's a note from, let's see, M.R. Brieger also posted a comment about the rabbits over there too. So, okay. All right.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
We all have to teach each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Here's another one, anonymous attendee, a comment. Not a question, but a possible solution.
Okay.
Dollar Tree has really cheap wire baskets that
Hmm.
work for protecting plants.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I've
shop
seen,
Dollar Tree a lot. That's a good
yeah,
place.
and I've seen they're like a wire trash can that you would have to put a liner in, obviously, to use as a trash can, but that would work great too. You could anchor it down with some of the landscape pins
Mhm.
to keep, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can also find them at places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and they may
Mm.
have the taller one, like the 3 and
Ah,
4 foot tall cylinder type ones that are
yeah,
pretty good. Okay. And
good. Yeah.
Carol Gokul just commented, I apologize if I missed the last name, Carol, but thank you for information on the wire baskets to deter rabbits. They said
Good.
thank you. Okay.
Good.
All right. I don't think we missed anybody. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions, audience?
Well, we thank everybody for your patience, and
Yes, thank you again.
we're very, very glad that you can join us this evening. Cheryl did a wonderful job. According to my notes, our next webinar will be on August 19th, and it will be on tree care, and the presenter will be Donna Smith. So we hope maybe we can see you then. Okay? So thanks everybody for coming, and